Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Ringside Cinema. I am your host, Money Mike, and it is Forbidden Door Week here on the channel. And today we are going to be looking at a negative, unfortunately, because, well, look, as a wrestling YouTuber, as a fan, as part of the internet wrestling community, I must overreact. So, yes, TV ratings, they probably don't mean as much as they did, say, 20 some years ago, 30 years ago, when we had the Monday Night Wars. And WWE, WCW were basically watching each other in the production trucks to see what the other was doing when they were going head to head on Monday nights. And yes, look, and like I said, ratings, they don't matter as much. But the problem here is obviously AEW has no problem selling out for their pay-per-views. They get good crowds for these shows. Now, yeah, I could go over and just show a bunch of photos of Collision and Dynamite and be like, oh, look, half-empty arenas. I'm not going to do all that. But obviously, there's a problem. Because their pay-per-views do good numbers. Fans are willing to go to the pay-per-views. They're buying the pay-per-views. But for whatever reason, AEW can't seem to bring in the viewership for their weekly TV. And I believe I know why. And there's a lot of factors to it. And I'm seeing what happened in the 90s between WWE and WCW. Before I get into that, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button today, as I will have weekly content on this channel. And not only that, but I will be live streaming Forbidden Door this Sunday, and I will be live streaming Money in the Bank next Saturday. So subscribe to Ringside Cinema now to join me on those live streams. And also, this Friday, Forbidden Door Friday, the 2024 version of what a AEW versus WWE Forbidden Door pay-per-view would look like. So, let's get into it. Obviously, right now, I'm wearing a CM Punk t-shirt. And for me, you could say that CM Punk was one of the few draws in AEW, because fans flocked to him when he came back. Because when he came back to pro wrestling in 2021, it was a big deal. A lot of fans tuned into that first Rampage. A lot of fans tuned in because they wanted to see CM Punk return to professional wrestling in some form. Obviously, especially given at the time that we thought, oh, there's no way to go back to WWE. And yet here I am wearing a WWE CM Punk t-shirt. And yeah. So, what all went wrong? What is going on with AEW? Why can't they bring in the TV viewers? Some people would say that this man right here, when he left AEW, that's when the downfall started. Some say when Triple H took over, when Vince McMahon had all these allegations come out and he had to step down. Some people say, and Triple H was the one taking over. Everyone said, okay, maybe that was when AEW started going downhill. But there were already signs, right? Because AEW, essentially, they lost their what do you call it? Their free period. Where it's like, it's a new promotion. It's only 1 or 2 years. Give it some time. Well, we're what 5 6 years, 5 years in. Guess what? You don't have that excuse no more, right? At this point, with TV viewership being at an all-time low rating, what is the problem? Why are fans flocking to the pay-per-views? Why are they buying the pay-per-views but aren't willing to keep up with the TV? And to me, I think this is where the lack of storylines and the lack of stories on TV and the many, many matches that just seemingly randomly pop up. Oh, we're going to have a random match. Oh, these two are, like Tony Khan will tweet out, these two are fighting. Okay, well, okay, great. Well, what's the reason? What's the story behind it? And look, don't tell me in the comments I'm a hater, okay? I love all of pro wrestling, okay? I want AEW to do well, but look, their slogan is "Where the best wrestles," right? The wrestling part isn't doing its job of bringing in viewership, and it's not bringing in people that want to watch. I said this before, with AEW Revolution. A lot of people will be tuning in because they hear Sting's last match, and you have a chance to show casuals who may not, who may have stepped away from wrestling for a while. Maybe they lapsed, maybe they stopped watching, but they hear about Sting's last match, and they were WCW fans, and they grew up in the Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars. Oh, Sting is still wrestling. Cool, let me check it out. Well, great. Well, guess what? You didn't give them a reason to stay. AEW doesn't do a good job at really capitalizing on stuff like that, because for me, when you go from one random match to another with no real story attached to it, fans aren't going to care. And I think that's kind of what's part of the problem is the booking. They don't have the week to week storylines that keeps people tuning in. They don't have the reason for people to tune in. It's like, okay, I'll just wait until the pay-per-view. And that's it. Like I watch Dynamite. I somewhat, I don't really watch Rampage or Collision, but Dynamite, I can watch Dynamite and get recaps of Rampage and Collision. But maybe there's too much TV. Maybe they spreaded themselves out too thin. Like for me, they built Collision, which Collision is like what 1 year anniversary was like last week or something. Well, the guy they made the show for because he wanted to keep the Elite and CM Punk separate, and basically had a brand split, so to speak. Because if you were Team CM Punk, you were on Collision. If you were Team Elite, you were on Dynamite. So the man that you made Collision for, and you made this extra show for, he's no longer there. In fact, he's one of the hottest freaking superstars in WWE, and he's not even wrestled. He's injured right now, and the stuff he's doing just costing Drew McIntyre and just world titles, and doing it while he's injured, and building a storyline and building to a match with the story behind it is intriguing. When Drew McIntyre quit, Then he shows up on SmackDown in Chicago, and we see the garage door open. Drew has Punk, on the ground, bloodied. Fans are invested. There's a story behind it. When I watch AEW, and I think one of the problems with the Forbidden Door concept is fans don't really care for these New Japan stars. Like, I like New Japan too. And I know, look, as a diehard fan, of course I know Okada, I know Ospreay, I know some of the big New Japan names, and I know that if they're going to come to America and they're going to fight, a Moxley or Omega or whoever, boom, I'm like, okay, cool. I know that's going to be a great match. I want to watch. But people at home who don't follow New Japan, they don't follow anything outside of wrestling outside North America, they're not gonna know why so and so is a big deal. Why was Okada a big deal free agent signing? Why was Will Ospreay a big name free agent signing? Like, what made him a big name? And AEW doesn't really do a good job at presenting its wrestlers in a way that makes them look like stars. And that's another issue I want to talk about because, again, I go back to WWE versus WCW. Look at what WCW did. They signed nearly anybody they could from WWE. Vince was basically like, hey, all right, cool. Hogan, Savage, you're too old. Hall, Nash, I'm not going to overpay to keep you. Bye-bye. I'm going to make new stars. And you see the same thing repeating itself. Because look who AEW has signed over these last few years, okay? Daniel Bryan, Adam Cole, Edge, which is, again, another thing I'll get into in a second here. Edge, Okada, Ospreay, Mercedes, Monet, who, the former Sasha Banks, which, a lot of people were like, oh, with the whole Damage Control WrestleMania storyline with Bayley, people are like, oh man, she could come back and team with Naomi. She could, fend off Damage Control against Bayley, blah, blah, people were excited. And then kind of like, okay, cool, AEW might have overpaid for her, but WWE was just kind of like, we got all these women down here in NXT that can just fill the void. We don't need her. Oh, cool, you signed Will Ospreay? Huh. Well, here's Braun Breaker, Carmelo Hayes, Dragunov. Who else am I missing? Yeah, Gunther. Here's all these new stars we're going to make. Again, it's history repeating itself. AEW, is making a big deal out of signing all these big free agents, and they're signing all these former WWE talent, which so many fans were like, oh, I can't wait until so-and-so gets away from WWE's booking. And then we kind of see where so many of them are in the same place they were when they left WWE. Edge, I look at as a kind of similar to Randy Savage situation in 1994. Because Vince saw him as just a commentator. That was it. He said, I'm building new stars, and I just want you as a commentator. Randy Savage said, hey, I can still go in the ring. Vince was like, oh, nope, you're just a commentator. And Randy Savage went to WCW. Obviously, Savage proved Vince wrong. and showed that he still had a lot left in the tank. And we missed out on a lot of potential good dream matches at that time because of Vince's thinking that Randy Savage was too old. But I bring up the Randy Savage example because it reminds me because I feel like that's what happened with Edge, where Edge has said in interviews, and yeah, I know I'm calling him Edge. I know he goes by Adam Copeland, but look, he's always going to be Edge to me. All right. He said in interviews that he wanted to do more, but WWE just said, "Hey, you're just a special attraction star, so we'll call you." And he was like, "Well, I feel like I can do more." And then Edge was like, his contract was up, and then he said, "All right, I'm gonna go to AEW." And then he went to AEW. He got the whole Edge presentation, the theme song, the nickname, everything. And the ratings have still not improved. Like, you have a Hall of Famer in Edge, and your ratings are still were not improved. Your ratings did not go up. Like, again, I think that's the other issue is you have these guys coming in, and of course, obviously, you can't use their WWE name. So when people hear Adam Copeland, they are not going to associate Adam Copeland to Edge. They hear Edge, and that might be a different story. People who don't know about Bryan Danielson's background of him being in the Indies, Ring of Honor, and that being his original name, they're not going to tune in because they're not going to associate that with Daniel Bryan. They're not going to associate Claudio with Cesaro. They're not going, they might only tune in if it's a name that they're familiar with. So, oh yeah, I know that person. And right now, AEW right now is facing a lack of star power. And to me, I think that shows with this record low rating, record low viewership. I think it shows that, hey, they have not been able to make new stars. WWE has been, you've been signing WWE free agents. You've been bringing in people. You've been bringing in New Japan. All these guys and girls who are great wrestlers, and I like a lot of them. And look, I'm going to All In. I'm going to All In London in August, and so I can go to an international wrestling event. But again, I know as a fan, or as a diehard fan, I guess, I know the type of a show that I'm going to get. I know the type of wrestling I'm going to get. But for a lot of other people, the non-fans, people who may have tuned out, they're not going to have a reason to tune in. And if you're not giving them a reason from a story perspective to tune in weekly to see the build-up to each match on the pay-per-view, what's the point? Like, you're building up to the pay-per-view, and what is supposed to be the thing that gets us invested into the pay-per-view match is the story build-up. Like, if Otis just randomly pushed Chad Gable with no build-up whatsoever, he just randomly did it, and then it was, like, not followed up on, or whatever, we'd be like, well, that was weird. It was like, why did he do it so randomly? If Sami Zayn at the, there was no tension between him and the Bloodline, and he just randomly hits Roman Reigns with the steel chair, why are we going to care? Because there was tension, there was build-up. to that moment, to when Sammy hit Roman with that steel chair, when Otis pushed Chad Gable a couple weeks ago. There was that build up. The fans popped in those two moments. They're making new stars, and AEW hasn't really done that. And they don't have anybody that can transcend the business. They're missing that person that can do that. You know, when WCW signed Hulk Hogan, guess what? They found their guy to take them to that next level and compete with Vince McMahon. And that started the Monday Night Wars. Because they were able to get Nitro on TNT, and that debuted in 1995. And the whole build up to the whole Monday Night Wars was because of Hulk, because WCW was able to find that one person that was able to transcend the business and get people to tune in. AEW right now does not have that person. And a lot of it has to do with booking. You know, a lot of times Tony Khan will book somebody good and then he'll cool them off. And then we're sitting there going, well, we thought this person was going to go up to the top, Wardlow, and then okay, well now he's he's getting arrested. He's in a lawsuit angle, even though he was the hottest he's ever been coming off that angle with MJF. But yeah, let's cool him off. So there's a lot right now with AEW that I think to me, if they can embrace the storyline, the story aspect, we know their matches are going to be fantastic. If they stop worrying about these having these 5-star matches every week, and I could go over, I could make this video even longer, but I could go over like, okay, you have this match going this long, this match going this long. Okay, we can cut time from this match to have another segment here to build this feud. We can cut time from this match. I can go on and on. But essentially, it's kind of sad because I don't want to see AEW, go down this path. Obviously, there's bumps in the road, right? WWE, WCW before the Monday Night Wars were both not doing that well, and they both found what they needed to take wrestling to the next level and make it mainstream. And right now, AEW is falling behind WWE again, and be it whether it's because this man right here left, be it because of Triple H, Tony Khan's booking, whatever the case may be, but at the end of the day, AEW has not done enough to build stars and to give fans a reason to tune in to their weekly TV product. And again, it's a shame because you see how everything started with AEW back in 2019, and you kind of see they've leveled off. Basically, I mean, I guess the phrasing would be leveled. They've cooled off. It's more like it, but they've cooled off. Now they've got to find a way to regroup and get back to where they were before, that this man left, before Triple H took over. Because it did seem for a while that AEW was on the up, and now we're wondering, with WWE being on the hot streak they're on, you have cities like Indianapolis paying for 2-night events. Can AEW rebound and find themselves in the same boat? I mean, again, I think AEW is missing out on these foreign shows. They need to don't just do All In London, but go to all these countries that WWE is going and put on great shows. Obviously, the market is there for fans to want to see wrestling in these countries. So, look, at this point, I've said all I can. Comment below, where do you think AEW went wrong? What do you think they need to do to get people to tune into their shows? And hey, hopefully AEW will have a turnaround one day and be back to where they were. And perhaps we'll be talking about how great both companies are doing instead of just one. I've been your host, Money Mike. This has been Ringside Cinema. And join me this Friday for Forbidden Door Friday as I will look at a WWE versus AEW Forbidden Door card in 2024.
Ringside Cinema, living out the dream. Lights down, time to go. Cheers the heroes we know. Ringside forever bold. Wrestling never gets old.